Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
It's alive! It's alive!
Hello from the Horrorverse. Okay, I won't lie to you, this week kind of got away from us, and through no fault of my own, the scripts may have missed their deadline. Okay, it's completely my fault. In an attempt to make the best product possible for you, the listener, our next series has taken a little more time than expected to put together. So to make up for it, we're going to give you the newest episode of Playing with Bones with Aimee Rose and a half of the latest episode of All New Real Monsters in the place of our usual It's Alive Alive podcast episode and weekend update. Why half, you ask? Well, it's simple promotion. See, I wouldn't lie to you. We want you to check out half the episode, then head on over to patreon.com/It's Alive Alive pod, where you can take advantage of our 7-day free trial for all new subscribers. In those 7 days, you can binge classic episodes of shows like Behind the Mask and Classic Real Monsters, as we try to find our way to what would become Playing with Bones and All New Real Monsters. So go on and check it out. We have hundreds of episodes up now and available for you to stream. That's patreon.com/It's Alive Alive pod. And we'll be back next Monday, or we'll be back Monday with Mini Monsters, and back next Wednesday with where we start the all-new series on Dexter Morgan, aka the Bay Harbor Butcher. So sit back, enjoy, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, so this week I thought we'd talk about Revenant burials, or the belief in kind of Revenant bodies in the medieval kind of period, and a tiny bit beforehand. There's examples of graves of people that were believed to return from the grave, kind of a slight bit beforehand in 800 CE in Ireland.
So it could be trioxin gas, part 4.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, and I knew this would happen eventually because she fucking pulls a face every week when I say this is your show, you introduce it. I am Dr. Smokenstein, she is Aimee Rose, and this is Playing with Bones. And I would guess going forward, I'll probably be the one having to say that.
I'll do it, right, cut it and I'll do it. Cut it and I'll do it. I forgot about it. We were literally sitting at the table talking and we started recording, and that's why I forgot to introduce it. But yes, this is Playing with Bones. I am Aimee Rose, and that's Dr. Smokenstein. Okay. And we're talking about Revenant burials.
What does Revenant mean?
So a Revenant, it's a spirit or a haunted corpse that is believed to have been revived from death to haunt the living.
Then why was that Leonardo DiCaprio movie where he's up in the mountain with the bear called the Revenant?
Because he is really, 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 really close to death.
Okay. I never knew what it meant. I just whenever I heard the word Revenant, I just thought of the movie.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know. And then I asked you what you were doing this week. At one stage, you were talking about funny tombstones or something like that. And the next thing I heard vampires, and I was like, hang on, this is a historical show. Is she saying there's vampires?
Yeah. Well, yeah, vampires fall under the whole kind of Revenant umbrella. There is a difference.
But again, I mean, I can see how it will come up considering on All New Real Monsters, we covered Elizabeth Bathory this week, and she was seen as a bit of a vampire. So I mean, to the people at that time, with the stories that were going around about her, and the drinking of virgin blood.
Again, not cool, but that could have been to cure her epilepsy, I will just say.
All right. which you pointed out to me on the show, does not work.
Doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah. Does that work? No, Josh.
Well, no, the mentality behind that was that they've obviously done it more than once and seen some success to think this is what
I can understand your line of thought, yeah. But when I said that the medieval cure...
Just some weird kind of thing. Not a full-on cure, but was there some weird kind of thing that was...
Like the genes, you take it in there. Yeah, no, I get it.
To relax the body or something. And I don't know. Obviously, if I was thinking properly, I'd be like, no, that doesn't make sense because they would have made use of it going forward and cured the problem rather
sometimes they do part of the skull afterwards.
Yes, I can't see that being as a modern solution.
No, I'm pretty sure you'd end up in jail after being cured.
Fucking donating your skull fucking after death for cures to epilepsy.
Yeah. But anyway, the Revenant burials, they include like vampire burials, like I said, or anti-vampire burials, which is a burial performed in a way which is believed to prevent the deceased from reviving in the form of a vampire or to prevent an actual vampire from coming back.
Okay. Yeah. See, all I can think of is Family Guy, where Mayor Adam West had every grave encased in concrete because he was afraid of zombies. That made me wonder, why are graves not encased in concrete? Would that preserve the bones better, or would it destroy the bone completely?
Oh, if you pour concrete down on top of
into the grave, yeah.
Yeah, but bones are porous, so I'd imagine it would absorb a lot of crap. As in, like, it would destroy the bones.
No, I was just curious. I was just wondering, like, would it be a more... I don't know.
Well, over time as well, is concrete heavier than soil? You're going to
decompose into the soil, which may...
Yeah. And then if you want, like, a lot of times as well, when skeletons are found... they're broken, but it's all like post-mortem breakage from the weight of soil, or like even when if you're in the fields and you find like the head of a skeleton, and you have to figure out what way that is facing. So when you're digging, you need to lie in the opposite. Like literally lie in the opposite direction, because any movement that you make on that soil while you're digging, it could break the bones farther down in the skeleton.
I don't know if it's real or not, but I saw a picture online, and it was this skeleton that they couldn't remove or something like that, but they had to lay a pipeline down, and they just literally put it through his skull. Yeah, a lot of skeletons even now are found with old gaswork pipes and stuff, like going through, like cemeteries, going through their skulls, going through the rib cages, because, well, number one, they just didn't give a shit back then. Like, these would be like old Victorian pipes, and sometimes, well, progress. But there is a lot of most archaeology actually in Ireland is rescue archaeology. So it would be in cases where there's something being found, like they want to remove it before the pipe goes in, before the building goes in. Like, so it, like, a lot of people, there would be backlash as well. Like, you'd see a lot of people asking, why aren't you leaving these people that have been buried? Like, they've got good burials. Why are you disturbing them? It's like, well, if we don't disturb them now, we're not going to be able to rebury them elsewhere, because they're going to be completely, like, most of them are reburied anyway. But a lot of them are taken for evidence. Not evidence, but like information that's going to be lost if we don't take it now before this goes in. We saw that remember we were watching that show, The Detectorist, and he found the bones, and he was working for a building company.
Oh yeah,
and they wanted to cover it up, and I think that's what happens a lot of the time. A lot of the time, unless it's an important find, and even if it is an important find, that's nearly worse, because that means all development is going to fucking completely cease.
I know people our father's age that have worked in England back in the 80s, and finding a skeleton or finding something old, it was like a pain in their backside. So a lot of them, they weren't.
They kind of do a pre-job at it. No,
you have an archaeological survey before that.
Because I remember when they were redoing the car park by the Abbey in Tralee, that was a huge dig. And a friend of mine, he was studying archaeology, he got to go down there and dig a little bit. Were you not talking about that at one point?
Yeah, so that's another case where the skeleton was lifted. It was a young adult male, as far as I remember, but he was decapitated. It was either on Dominic Street or it was in the Abbey Car Park. I'm pretty sure it was in the Abbey Car Park.
As far as I know, they were, I think that was the time they were upgrading the Abbey and all that.
That's it, but it would all have been that land, like way back when, that would all have been land joined to the church there across the road, in Dominic. The Dominican, yeah. Yes. Exactly. That would make sense.
Well, I don't know that, but it's the church we had to go to, because that's where we lived closest to.
Yeah.
So that was our Sunday church.
Okay.
And then St. Brendan started doing a 12:30 mass, and suddenly that became our Sunday church.
Oh, nice. 12:30. We were 12:15.
Oh, fucking hell. Anything earlier than that was killer.
I remember staying at my cousin's house and having to get up to go to 9 o'clock mass. I was like, lads, what are you at? Oh. But anyway. So I'm going to start with 4 stories from William of Newburgh. So William of Newburgh wrote Historia Rerum Anglicarum in about 1197, and that's the foremost literary source for the medieval belief in revenants. So it's a book of 25 stories about kind of supernatural beliefs and unbelievable stories.
So kind of like H.P. Lovecraft kind of style.
Yeah, these ones, they would be kind of like H.P. Lovecraft kind of style. But then he was a chronicler, so a lot of it would have been like it is basically like the history, like English history, like the name of the book even. So he's kind of saying that these things actually happened.
Hang on now, 1 minute. Essentially, he does what we do on It's Alive Alive podcast.
So. Yeah.
He's taking these phony stories and chronicling them as if they were real.
Putting them into books. Well, yeah, I presume he believed they were real as well at the time.
We don't believe it's real. We know we're watching movies. Yeah. We haven't went crazy yet. Yes.
So, there is 4 stories in the book that detail encounters with the Walking Dead, and they are the Buckingham Ghost, the Berwick Ghost, the Hound's Priest or Hunderpest, and the Ghost of an Ant. And the Buckingham Ghost tells of a man that died and was buried. And in the night after he was buried, he rose and visited his wife in her bed, nearly crushing her with the weight of his body. The second night, he did the same. And then on the third night, the wife stayed awake and had people stand watch. And he visited again, but he was scared away by the shouts of those standing guard. So frightened off from visiting his wife, he started to visit his brothers in the same manner, who all lived on the same street. And they, having seen what happened to the wife, made sure that they were also staying awake and had people keeping guard. And this went on at night for a while, and where he would rise and he'd visit the street, but everyone was obviously staying awake in hopes of driving him away should he appear that night.
See, I never get that. If it's somebody I know, I'm not going to be that pissy to see. It's not going to bother me to see him. If someone I like,
but he wasn't being very nice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So then it said that when he started,
so he's being your typical zombie, like.
Yeah, typical zombie. Yeah. But then when he was getting no hop at night, like he wasn't getting any attention, he started appearing in broad daylight. So, and then he kind of sounded like a bit of a ghost as well, because it was said that if he appeared to a group of people, only certain people in the group would see him.
But I was going to say that sounds more ghostly than zombie to appear.
Yeah, it starts off just at night, like, so it does kind of sound like more zombie. Yeah. So the inhabitants, anyway, of the street eventually went to seek the advice from the Archdeacon, who went then to the Bishop of Lincoln. And he investigated the matter, and according to William of Newburgh, he found out that this sort of thing had often happened in England. So the bishop, I haven't obviously experience from dealing with these matters before, wrote a letter of absolution and ordered that the man's tomb be reopened and the letter placed on the corpse's chest. And then the tomb was then closed, and the man never reappeared after he got that letter of absolution put on his chest.
So they wrote him a strongly worded letter advising him
in red and fire on all.
To whom it may concern.
And then the Berwick Ghost then tells of a man from the city of Berwick that did die and was buried. So he again rose from the grave and started wandering around the city, usually followed by a pack of barking dogs. This continued for many days, with people not daring to venture out after dark, some fearing a violent run-in with the Revenant, and some recognising that a walking corpse wasn't great for public health. So that was kind of like a real fear as well, that I'm going to catch the plague off him. So 10 young men that were known for their boldness and their braveness were employed to dig up the corpse, chop it up and burn it. So apparently the monster itself had told people who had encountered it that as long as the corpse remained unburned, the corpse would not rest. So he was literally telling people how to get rid of him.
So Evil Dead rules, you gotta take it completely apart and destroy the body completely.
Exactly. And when we were watching the Evil Dead, I said that to you. I could you like, is that a belief that carried over? Because that was another strong belief kind of in medieval folklore regarding a revenant, was that it would have to be chopped up and burnt or else it wasn't going away.
Do they know why these people were coming back? Is it like are they coming back? Is it like a ghost, unfinished business? Is it like, the Crow?
There's loads of different reasons.
Jesus.
There, like in Scotland, there's child revenants, and that had died in like particularly horrible circumstances. But like a child that died of like an illness, or a child that died because kind of suddenly wouldn't come back as a revenant. There's all like these different factors. Like, so it could be like white women. They would be classed as revenants as well. They come back because they've been hurt in their life. Like. There's loads.
Oh, right. When you said white women, I just saw white girls.
No, white ladies. White
you mean
ladies.
women in white, like
Yeah. And then your women in red. Yeah, there's
I was like, right, so specifically the white ethnicity are coming back
No,
to play.
they're white ladies because they're in white dresses, and then the red ladies are in red dresses.
Not just the Wayans brothers.
And the Hounds Priest or Hunderpest concerns an abbey just over the border in Scotland. That's Melrose Abbey and an evil priest.
What's it called?
Melrose Abbey.
Before Underpest.
Hunderpest.
That sounds German to be, very German to be Scottish.
Or there would have still been a lot of Saxon, like Anglo-Saxon, like left over. And then like English. It's kind of like a whole amalgamation. Like you've got a lot of German in English.
Even when the Norse was that kind of like Germanic paganism and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly. In the summer of 1196, a priest named Hunderpest, and he was called that because he liked hunting with dogs, died. So literally his name means the Hounds Priest.
Okay.
Yeah. The priest had a reputation of cruelty even to women to the woman that employed him as her personal chaplain. And shortly after being interred in his tomb, the priest rose from the dead and wandered the countryside, terrorizing his fellow priests and the wealthy woman for whom he had served as a chaplain. The priest had unsuccessfully tried to break into Melrose Abbey on a number of occasions, but had been driven away by the inhabitants of the abbey. The wealthy woman, however, was attacked by Hunderpest, who feasted on her blood. She didn't die though. He just took blood from her. And after she had been attacked, she was able to convince the monks of Melrose Abbey to act to end the priest's reign of terror. One night, the monks ambushed the Revenant, and one of the monks was able to land a blow on the Revenant with an axe. It didn't kill him, but it did weaken him. And then the next morning, the hunks followed him back. The monks followed him back.
Sexy monks. All right, the hunks.
So they followed him back to his tomb, and he dragged him out and set fire to his sleeping form.
All I'm picturing now are, do you know, like the Chippendales, except instead of having the bow tie, they have the priest's collar on.
Yeah, I was imagining shit a bit darker, and instead of loads of creases, like loads of blood.
And they have your shitty monk haircuts as well.
Oh, you ruined it, Josh. Absolutely ruined that. So it was said that he screamed and writhed until he was burned to ashes, which were then spread, and so the Hunderpest was no more.
See, he sounds like a vampire.
Well, drinking blood, yeah. Especially if he's an evil priest, makes it a lot more creepy.
And even when you see like Dracula and stuff like that, and Buffy's right, they always burst to dust when they're finished. You know, at the end when they're finally dead, so you know when they're dust, they're dead.
Exactly, and that's why they spread out.
Even Chucky played that up this week or last week's episode. No, whenever you're listening to this episode, it could be anywhere.
Last week, this week.
But when Chucky was in the White House and about to shoot off the nukes, and they wanted to really put it to us that he was dying this time, dead dying this time, and he dies and he turns to dust and fades away. So that seems to be a common kind of trope with
with the undead.
Yes,
exactly. So there was also one more that William of Newburgh wrote about, and that was of a man of poor conduct in The Ghost of an Ant who begins to doubt his wife's fidelity. So faking a business trip, he hides in the rafters to watch what she gets up to in his absence. And horrified to see her at it with a young neighbour, he falls off the beam and lands in between them. The wife convinces him that he is deluded and he collapses. When the priest visited, he put off taking the Eucharist and making his confession until the next day, but he died that night. So he was given the chance for confession, last rites and all that, but he said no.
So he was watching, he was snooping, he thought his wife was cheating, he was snooping, he was right. He fell out of surprise of being right, and then she convinced him that he was out seeing everything.
Yeah.
Smart wife.
Yeah. So, despite a full Christian burial, his spirit wanders the area each night and his corpse infects the air. And soon people fall ill and die. The sons of one of the dead dug up the grave to find that the corpse was grotesque and distended with a swollen, reddened face.
The fuck was he expecting to find?
Oh, well, yeah, that sounds like normal bloating. They struck it, but with such a quantity of blood came rushing out that it soaked the earth. And he realised that it was a vampire, so they removed the heart, burned the body, and they freed the town.
So they reckon because the build-up of blood, that he must have been sucking the blood from somewhere, that they're storing it.
That's it, like, yeah.
I thought, does the blood not usually go to your backside? Because when you're lying down, then the blood all pool on the back. Like,
but you see, that's how they know when someone has been moved. And I
suppose they're not draining these fucking bodies. Do they take all your blood out when they put when they embalm you and stuff?
I don't know. I really don't know that. I don't know anything about embalming. I know that where the body pools depends on where you were killed. As in, like...
Well, I know if you're lying on your side, but I'm just saying, would it, like... Basically, would it not be all hard by the time they had dug it up and swung a fucking axe at it? Would it still be liquid inside him, or would it not be congealed?
I would have thought it would start to ooze out. Like, I mean, like by the time you're in the ground, how long are you in the ground before it starts to ooze?
I'm not 100% sure. But my assumption
and back then,
was
I don't know. Like, if we're able to take all the blood now, I'm not too sure about that. Like, but would they really? Would they drain the body back then?
You're talking about H.P. Lovecraft, and those stories are from what, the early 1900s, late 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, and in Reanimator, that's the big issue. They have to go to the potter's field because the poor people are buried there, and they're not embalmed, whereas the people with money or the people who had families were embalmed and put in the Christchurch Church burial grounds.
In the 1900s?
Hang on, I'll have a quick look, but I am pretty sure Reanimated, because it had to be it would have to be after World War One, so it would have been early 1900s, because World War One is in the story.
So what are you saying? If they were doing it then, they were doing it back in the 1100s?
Oh, are we going that far back?
Yeah.
No, sorry. I would just, see, to me, history is just before TV, after TV.
I literally said that William of Newburgh started writing like Hunterpest is from 1196.
Okay, yeah, that's a bit off, alright. They probably did come a bit of a ways.
I wanted to say it nicely, but let you have your speak. But so according to William, this happened so much that he said, were I to write down all the instances of this kind which I have ascertained to have befallen in our times, the undertaking would be beyond measure laborious and troublesome. So apparently this was a common thing in England, the dead just walking around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he have any evidence of this if he believed it? Or was it just the stories his evidence?
So the stories were his evidence. He'd always get them from other sources. But I have a tiny few examples of it. Like, they're from Poland. Some of them are from Poland. Some of them are from England. And there's one from Ireland of burials that are presumed to have been burials designed to stop people from coming back from the dead. Okay. So 137 bones that represented at least 10 people dating to between the 11th and 13th centuries, right about when William of Newburgh would have been active, were unearthed in Warm Percy. So that's a deserted village in Yorkshire, like long deserted. And they were examined by a team of scientists from Historic England and the University of Southampton, which was led by human skeleton biologist Dr. Simon Mays. These skeletons ranged in age from between 2 to 4-year-olds to adult skeletons. And according to Mays, were most certainly subjected to mutilation designed to stop them from rising from the grave. They concluded that the bones of the individuals were broken with either stones or hammers. Knives were used to decapitate the bodies, and the thinking behind that is being most likely to deprive the body of sight and thought, if it was to come back. Yeah. And then finally, the bodies were burnt to deprive them of as much flesh as possible to make it less likely that the bodies would return, because the medieval thought would be that skeletons could not be reanimated, so only intact fleshy bodies could return.
Well, I would agree with that. It's always like the stupidest thing that you see in horror.
Why is a skeleton walking around?
I suppose when you look at it, it's a paranormal. The skeleton's moving, it's paranormal to begin with, so it should be able to move. But
I
it
always reasoned
like
maybe there was a wizard controlling the bones. Like,
it always seemed like the easiest bad guy to stop.
Oh yeah,
just kick all the bones. So that always seemed kind of ridiculous to me. But at the same time, I'm surprised there wasn't more of this in medieval time. Like something this wasn't like this kind of burial wouldn't have been extra. I'm surprised it wasn't more common to bury like this, because they were obviously more, I don't want to say gullible, but their belief system was very different. What they understood was very different from now.
Yeah.
And they kind of still had that kind of belief in magic, in the paranormal, in the other realm, in the kind of strong beliefs in fairies and all this kind of stuff. So for them to think like that a corpse could come back as a monster, I would just assume is something that became common before, especially before Christianity and stuff like that started to maybe hold the body in more regard.
Yeah, I mean, like there are examples of graves that They're not that common. They're not as common as what you would think for
I would
the
just thought
belief system.
the hysteria would have kind of been like,
took
all
hold.
bodies need to be
Well,
buried.
when you look at that graveyard, I mean, that's at least 10 people, all from the one graveyard within a 200-year period. So that's maybe like one every 20 years, which is quite a lot.
Section that probably, but that's just a small group. But
That's just a small group of people,
obviously, different clans, different territories had different, slightly different ways of doing things.
Exactly.
But.
And just because we're finding these burials now, I mean, it doesn't mean that there weren't as many. Like you do have to have certain soil conditions, like Sutton Hoo. That is one of the most famous archaeological discoveries of like the last century, if not ever, like in England. And there weren't even there was no bones found. There was sand bodies, which is like the bones have decomposed, so they've left their imprint. And it's the same with the ship. They found the rivets from the ship. They found the outline. Like when you look at those pictures,
Well, they couldn't
black and
touch
white.
any of that without it just collapsing to pieces.
They
It's
have
like
to
a
be
sandcastle.
yeah, literally. Like so, when you look at the black and white photos, but when you look at them down in the ship where the burial is, you can make out the ship perfectly in the black and white photo. It's like they're standing in a ship, but it's not. They have excavated the soil that infilled the ship, and what they were left with was just the shadow, literally a shadow of a ship.
What did they do with that?
Well, they excavated. They take pictures. They had lengths. They had measurements. They had the rivets. The rivets were all still in place, like the iron rivets. And now what they're doing actually in Sutton, in that area, they're I can't remember the name of the group, but they're reconstructing the ship from all this detail that they were able to take from the ship burial.
That's crazy.
I mean, it completely changed how people saw the Anglo-Saxons in England. It rewrote history like that find.
Well, it's crazy because it is like when people like me who wouldn't know a whole pile about this stuff, when I think about finding historical stuff, it's usually something solid, something hard. Even when you look at the Detector's comedy show and so like, they're looking for fucking a find, like something like metal detectors.
Yeah.
But then you were pointing out to me only during the week about how like with Newgrange and stuff like that, if you did a flyover of that in certain conditions, you can see outlines from the shade of grass, colour green in the grass. You can see outlines of where other ones, burials or another.
Like the Boyne Valley is literally like a necropolis. Like if you see it from the air, it is just.
And they're just not digging that shit up out of fear. They'll lose all that area, because did they not put a fucking bypass through one of them or something like that?
I think they were going through Tara, but I don't know if they actually did that in the end in the Hill of Tara. But a lot of the times not unless in Ireland you don't do it unless you have a reason. So like to go and get permission.
We have so much of them.
No. It's because they want it because they're so protected. Archaeological features are so protected in Ireland. Like even metal detecting laws are different in Ireland to England. If you want to get permission as an archaeologist to dig in the Boyne Valley, you need to have a certain. It's a whole project. Before you even put pen to paper, you need to know what you want to find out about it. You need to be digging for a certain reason.
Sounds like legal. It sounds like fucking, like trying to get a search warrant on somebody or trying to fucking bring a case against somebody in court. Like,
yeah. But that's it. But even at that, if they're like, right, well, that's a valid reason. And then they're looking at like methodology and the science available to us now. And they're like, right, well, we don't know if you can do this without destroying evidence that in 10 years' time we might have the technology.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, why not just fucking take the whole area and be like, well, let's search everything and do everything. But you're saying they're looking at the conditions first
Exactly.
and thinking, well, if this could be there, we might fuck it up because we're not ready to fuck it up.
we're not ready. Exactly. And there's actually, I've seen a lot of examples in the UK especially of where Victorian, I don't know, would you call them archaeologists at that stage, or they were just, if you call them antiquarians, but they would have gone digging and they found things, and even them back then they knew themselves, we can't touch this. So they brick them up with like red brick, and archaeologists now are coming back, they have to like obviously take the red brick off these features first before that they can, but that was
so do archaeologists like lose their mind when they're digging and they find some red brick? It's like, well, you fucking found something good.
Most of the time it's a red brick wall or a red brick building.
They have to get that little spark of fucking hope first.
Yeah.
And be like, yes.
And actually, even I think, as far as I know, the 137 bones, the 10 people that we just talked about, one of those was first found in 1959. But the archaeologists at that time, actually, I think there was a pipe run through this skeleton as well. And he said that he wasn't able to touch it at that time. But they have lifted it since because the technology was there. So that is a huge thing with archaeology. So going back.
You brought that to my attention because I always just thought once they find these things, regardless of where they were taking them all on their own. That was
no, not always.
I didn't realise they had so much, what's the word?
Red tape.
Not red tape, but fucking integrity with their job. Like, they had to be like, do you know what, to be able to step back and go, fuck it, we cannot do this properly and the future might benefit from it better, so we're going to take a step away from this and walk away and rebury it. And that's crazy. Yeah. And obviously it's marked then as well, so I mean, as soon as the technology is there, you're ready to fucking bounce on it. Like, but it's just...
But I think it's kind of respect for not just kind of like the bodies in particular. Like, if you're going to damage the body, if there's no reason for the body to be brought up, it's been buried, like, leave it where it is. And I think that's a lot of people... Again, what I was saying at the start of the show, a lot of people don't grasp that. I
mean, I've told you before, I'd prefer to be cremated because I don't really want to be fucking eaten by insects when I'm dead. And I don't like the claustrophobic idea of being in a box and buried all that. But if I was, and because of that as well, that's partially why I'd like this. But if I was found, that would be the only thing I'd like. Is like when we were looking at the Vikings' bones in the Dublin Museum, I was like, how fucking cool would that be to have your bones laid out forever, like, just for people coming to see them and visit them, and that is a comforting thought. But I wouldn't want to be left in the dirt. Are you going to be one of the few
that gets into the museum, though?
But I wouldn't want to be left in the dirt. I'd be like, fuck it, if you find me, take me out and do something with me.
Do something. Take me out to dinner. But back to the Revenant burial. So in 17th century, in a 17th century graveyard in Poland, in Pien, I think it's called, archaeologists dug up the remains of a woman with a blade of a sickle laid across her throat to stop her from rising from the grave. So the way it
was like a trap, like.
Yeah, exactly. The way it was laid was obviously the sharp edge to her throat. If she tried to stand up or anything like that, if she wasn't getting decapitated, she was getting very seriously.
So she was doing like the Undertaker, Kane, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees sit up. The rising, right? So it's like sit up, the head will just come straight off.
Straight off, exactly.
Good idea. And see, all the opponents of the Undertaker at WrestleMania, if you ever wanted to beat that streak, all you have to do, put a blade in front of his head. See who's the dead man then.
Uh-huh. And in the same graveyard, a child aged about 5 to 7 years was also found with triangular padlocks on its feet. And actually that woman was found with the same triangular padlocks on her feet as well. So that was meant to bind the remains to the earth.
Okay. So, okay.
Yeah. So that obviously to stop.
This all makes sense.
I think if you believe in reanimation, it makes sense.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
no, that's what I mean. I mean, what they're doing makes sense.
It does.
What they're attempting to do.
Yeah.
I think it would have just been easier for him to dump a bunch of rocks on top of the thing or something.
Yeah. And then in Nottinghamshire, in the UK, a skeleton dating from 500 CE to 700 CE, which is very unusual because it goes back before the medieval belief, was found with spikes through its shoulders, feet and heart. So that one has me on the fence a tiny bit because of the time period that it was found in. So there's archaeologists that saying that, well, obviously, like, it was a burial designed for it to stop coming back. But it was found when they found Roman remains. And obviously, if somebody mentions Roman to me and spikes in their hands and their feet and their... I'm thinking a crucifixion. A crucifixion was carried out routinely in England by the Romans as a form of punishment. Yeah. And then the very last one then that I am going to talk about is the skeletons that were found in Ireland.
Before you get to that, all those like traps and contraptions and ways of keeping the body down. Why did nobody in this time period just think, well, if in doubt, burn the body? Or was it just because it was so fucking religious that it was like, it has to be buried?
You don't burn the body as in a Christian burial.
I know that. But if they're afraid it's going to fucking come back as something unchristian and attack them.
Well, obviously they did that afterwards. I think that the thing is, give them the good Christian burial first, and that was meant to kind of like stop all this thing as well, and then go from there. So yeah, but prevention is better than cure. Yeah. So then, kind of the same time period.
But women that might be a little bit smart will burn them. They're fine. Burn the witches. The zombies are fine. As long as they stay in their grave, the zombies can stay there. Any women who talk up the witches, burn. Zombies, fine. Vampires, fine. Witches, we're going to burn them. That was the attitude at the time, like.
I suppose, yeah, I'll give you that, kind of.
So, which is worse than vampires and zombies, or is it just because it was...
I think it's because they're women.
Yeah.
Realistically. 90% there were men as well. But
warlocks. You never hear about them. Huh?
I prefer to be called a warlock than a witch. It sounds super powerful.
Well, a witch has always been kind of put to you over the years as kind of a sharp-faced, ugly, kind of hag kind of woman. Mm-hmm. And a warlock's always a big bearded kind of Merlin-looking Dumbledore motherfucker.
Okay, if I had to be female about it, so far, as in a sorceress. Sorceress is always way harder than a witch.
It sounds nicer as well. Mm-hmm. Sounds more pleasant.
Definitely. Yeah.
No, don't get me wrong. I mean, our generation has done Hot Witch great.
Yeah.
But the classic, which is usually Wizard of Oz, kind of.
I'm big nose.
What a word.
Anyway, in Sligo, in Kiltasheen in Sligo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that. That's the first Irish.
Come on, Amy. We got to at least pronounce our own place names. This is the first. We can't do that. We might as well give up.
In Ireland, I can say that right. No, this is odd because it doesn't sound right to me. This is how it's spelled. This is how we pronounce it. But I don't know if you need to. Do the way some accents kind of say it fast. And it's like, okay, that place name sounds better now. Kiltasheen. Kiltasheen? Kiltasheen.
Kiltasheen, yeah.
Kiltasheen, yeah. See? So there was two skeletons dug up. They were 8th century and they had rocks jammed into their mouths. And I remember this being on the news. I don't know if you remember it when they were found.
Not really.
Okay. So one of the men was between 40 and 60 years old. And then the other one was about between 20 to 30 years old. And the two men were laid side by side and each had a baseball-sized rock shoved in its mouth. One of them was lying with his head looking straight up and it had a large black stone deliberately thrust into its mouth. And then the other had his head turned to the side and had an even larger stone wedged violently enough into his mouth so that his jaws were nearly dislocated.
See, that's what happened to snitches back in medieval times.
So the research, when they found these skeletons, they originally thought that they had discovered a Black Death-related burial ground since the whole rock in the mouth kind of thing took place during the Middle Ages when... Basically, if somebody had the plague and they died, and you were buried in a shroud, and if you put them into the ground, it was thought that they could chew on the shroud and also come back and then infect you with the plague.
Okay.
So they used to put a rock into their mouths.
This is another case where why were they not burning the bodies? It's the plague. They had so many bodies. I thought it would just be like the fucking Monty Python sketch. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Throw on the street. I thought it would be like Night of the Living Dead rules. I'm sorry, we have got to forgo the formalities of a funeral. You will have to learn to grieve in another way.
Think as you
we
go
are
on
burning the bodies.
Well, no, there must have been some reason not to do it. I don't know whether they believed that foul in the air from the bodies could reinfect
I was just thinking that Return of the Living Dead kind of rules because that happens in Return of the Living Dead. Whereas in Night of the Living Dead, they have that kind of we're burning all the bodies. In Return of the Living Dead, when they kind of switched off and Romero went one way and is it O'Bannon went the other way? And he did that in Return of the Living Dead. That's what happens. That's what infects the whole town. Is the original two try and burn the remains that they had accidentally brought back. That they had both been infected by. But when they put it into the cremation fucking fire thing, it comes out the chimney, infects the air, and then it rains down on everybody, infecting the zombies and bringing back the dead.
So that would be my line of thought there. And usually, I mean,
that the plague will come up in it would be, basically it would be fucking making a gas bomb out of the fucking thing again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
biological weapon.
You've heard of like plague pits. Like, I've never heard of a plague pit that wasn't like a pit full of bodies as well.
Basically, that's what I was thinking, which is mass grave.
They'd be different. Like a mass grave is usually, they are mass graves, but they'd be called kind of more routinely plague pits by archaeologists kind of to distinguish them because a mass burial is more so a mass burial due to violence. And they can be distinguished from plague pits because usually the bodies in the plague pits have no signs of trauma on the skeletons. Whereas,
so mass grave might be after like a big battle or something.
Yeah, exactly. A plague pit then it's only distinguishable as a plague pit because there's no marks on the bodies. Yeah.
Would the bones be a bit more deteriorated as well after dealing with the plague? No,
because usually your cells take about 10.
Brittle.
No, not really.
A healthy, full-blown warrior fighting.
Basically, when you get the plague takes you so fast that the disease hasn't had time to affect your cells. So your cells renew something like 10 days, and very few people see 10 days.
Really?
Oh my God!
I don't know about plague. I heard of the whole fucking last podcast thing on it, but I think sometimes they do history stuff and I zone out a little bit. I don't do that here. I listen to every word you say. Sure you do. But I mean, it's not that I don't like them. I end up going back listening to them again eventually. At first listen, I'm usually there for the horror stuff. I'm there for the blood and guts, but every now and again you'll throw something on and it'll be paranormal and I'll be like, yeah, this is fun. Or it'll be something different and I'll be like, this. I mean, like, Poor Things. Yeah. I'd have never watched that if it was me on my own to make a decision to start. And if I would have thrown it on and I would have watched the first 5 minutes and been like, I'd rather watch Frankenstein or the Reanimator or something.
Well, are you happy you sat through it?
Oh yeah, and I would have fallen back on my usuals, my kind of classics that I enjoy. Then, but I jumped on that because you suggested it,
and I'm good at suggesting.
But it's the same with the shows like last podcast. Sometimes I'm just there to hear the serial killer stuff, and it surprised me with something else that's better. Okay. I mean, they did those the 2 World War series. They did World War II series. They did one on the Nazis and the actual Holocaust, and then they did one on fucking Oppenheimer. And I think they were both times they were like, outside of listening to the Irish crime stuff, where I actually felt a bit of fucking anger listening to what I was listening to. I pissed off, not like almost irrationally pissed off that you're listening to something that happened historically, but thinking to yourself, it wasn't that fucking long ago, and it should not have fucking happened like that. Why was there not anybody? And that's on both sides, because obviously the Holocaust is the Nazis' fault, and fucking the whole nuclear bombing is America. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that wasn't that long ago in history. But so I mean, I do get stuff out of these history episodes as well, so I do enjoy them. But I'm listening.
So what have you learned from this episode?
That zombies are real and that we need to start. What I've been saying for fucking years, Amy.
Okay. I only reinforce your beliefs. So
case graves is what we need.
Okay, so that's what I got for you this week.
Awesome. And what about I have a comic book that's based on, I think it's supposed to be like a Viking vampire.
Okay.
Like the Dragoor or something like that.
Overtop? No?
No, you covered that on Mini Monsters ages ago.
I did.
It's a comic book, and it was I'm not going to comment on what I thought about the comic book. It was okay. But
Dragur?
Yeah.
So that's a Norse term.
Oh, I know that. Oh. But there's some story about him in Ireland as well. I was expecting it to come up. But they're vampires, aren't they? They're like a mix of vampire kind of
Jar in Dublin City.
That might be it, yeah.
It's a graphic novel by Jerry Hunt. So I'm just having a look here. I don't know if that might be his own thoughts.
Oh. These guys are fucking a bit of everything though. They're undead kind of vampire zombie things, but down here you go, they're again, it seems to be everything you've said already. I mean, like, they could be ghosts with physical bodies, they could be vampires, they could be sorcerers, they could be... So, I'm just after bringing
anything that can be reanimated and comes back from the dead.
So, they're all the one, like...
It's an umbrella term, basically. Like, I mean...
Well, undead is an umbrella term for fucking monsters, because they're nearly always something that's died or something that's... Yeah, but they just mean... maybe werewolves.
Revenant is more returning from the grave. Yeah, but it's...
Which is funny, I knew... Yeah. I don't know why I kind of... assumed Revenant had something to do with revenge, but it makes more sense. Revenant returned.
Revived.
Yeah. That's pretty fucking cool.
Does the Revenant go out for revenge? Does it have a double meaning? Does Leonardo DiCaprio go for revenge? No? Is there not like a big fight scene with him and Tom Hardy?
I've only seen the movie once.
I need to watch it again.
I can't remember.
I know Donald Gleeson was amazing in it.
Was Donald Gleeson in it?
Yeah.
Those Gleesons are showing up all over the
everywhere, I'm telling you.
There's only fucking 3 of them.
Space and all. In space and all. There's not 4 of them. Donald Gleeson was in Star Wars.
Yeah. There's obviously Brendan Gleeson, Donald Gleeson, and there's Brian Gleeson, is it?
Brian Gleeson. And is he the same Gleeson that was in Love Hate?
Yeah.
I think there's 3
He played Huey.
Oh, hang on. I was just thinking, I think there's a Huey.
Yeah, he played Huey in Love Hate.
Yeah, hang on now. And then he had the sketch show last year, the year before. Not that sketch show, it was a comedy one.
Yeah, it was Brian of Ireland or something like that.
Brian of Ireland, that's
something
what it
like
was.
that. And that one
I enjoyed it.
show. But I like anything any of the fucking Gleasons are doing.
There is 4 Gleasons, 4 baby Gleasons, 4 sons.
Oh, you've got 2 other kids.
There's
the
Donald
actors.
Gleason, Brian Gleason, Fergus Gleason, and Rory Gleason. So Brian Gleason, we said it's Rory Gleason. He looks familiar. We've seen him in something lately. And we were like, oh my God, he is Brenda Gleason's son. I definitely saw him lately. I can't remember where I saw him. Yeah, so he's a novelist, I think. And then Fergus Gleason then is composer. Music. There you go.
Talented family.
Yeah. This Rory guy is really cracking me up because I've seen him lately. I saw him lately. Novelist, playwright, and screenwriter. Do you know?
So, work out how we got here yourself. We started on Revenant. We're finishing on the Gleasons.
Because Donald Gleason was in the Revenant. It's really easy.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that far. You don't listen to me. You clearly don't listen to me.
I listened to all of it.
Come here. As soon as you mentioned H.P. Lovecraft, I was like, when do I tell him it was the 12th century?
You're about a couple of 100 years off there. Again, as far as I'm concerned, everything that happened before the First World War, everything seems just like the same. It's like it didn't change for it until they sorted out all their electricity and stuff. Once they got Wi-Fi there, they really caught on.
Makes it sound like a them problem. Sort out your electricity, lads. Then come see me.
See, and that's why we're not in the Galactic Federation of Planets yet, Amy.
Because your ancestors had no electricity.
We've been too slow catching up. They've only given us Wi-Fi in the last 20 years.
Because we can only be trusted with Wi-Fi in the last 20 years.
We've had it since the fucking 40s when Roswell happened. And we made the exchange with the small greys.
Okay, I believe you. We should do a Playing with Aliens episode with Dr. Smokenstein.
Playing with adult aliens because we don't want to get in trouble with the Galactic Federation of Planets. So any aliens that want to come on a play date, hit us up.
Adult aliens.
See you next week.